Cellular networks are starting to carry an ever-increasing load of data as customers use more data-intensive applications on their mobile devices. An important component of managing this is the offload of that data to the back end. We're here today to talk with Gabriel Brown about internet offload. And you know, the first thing that comes to mind, Gabriel, when you talk about that is moving data from the cellular network to Wi-Fi. And of course, there's another component there, the core network. How does this all factor in?
Sure, so internet offload, fundamentally it's about dealing with increasing data, being able to provide better service to people. So we really break it down in two main areas. There's RAN offload, which is Wi-Fi and femtocell, essentially, and there's core network offload, which takes a number of guises, breakout gateways and internet offload in the core rather than the RAN.
Gabriel, could you tell us a little more specifically about Wi-Fi offload?
So Wi-Fi offload right now is really user-driven, something what you sometimes refer to as hard offload. So you take your device home, you put your password in from your home Wi-Fi router, and it kind of works. It's good. You know, it's probably half of usage today is that kind of Wi-Fi offload. Where it's going is to automate that process, either at home, but in particular in sort of public areas or offices, things like that. So you can automate the login to Wi-Fi from your device without needing to put in a password, a username. It's all just cached on the device, whether through the SIM or a certificate or some other part of the application.
Will this model allow customers to seamlessly move between networks without inputting any extra information into their device?
So the point about SIM-based authentication is it will enable, from a user perspective, you'll be able to move in and out of 3G cellular and Wi-Fi connectivity transparently without having to put in a password or username or any of that. The basic credentials that will give you access to Wi-Fi are housed in the SIM, just as they are for cellular networks.
Customers hear horror stories about unsecure Wi-Fi connections. Will these Wi-Fi connections be secure?
So another benefit of SIM-based authentication is, as part of the 802.1x authentication, is it will enable hotspot operators and other Wi-Fi infrastructure providers to offer a secure air link over the Wi-Fi itself. Some of the current implementations today, they might have automatic login, but they're insecure from a user traffic point of view.
What needs to happen specifically at the Wi-Fi hotspots?
A big component of SIM-based authentication and Wi-Fi offload done properly is going to require quite a lot of the existing Wi-Fi hotspot infrastructure either to be upgraded or to be replaced altogether. And you know, that's for reasons of a number of reasons why, but there's an initiative called the sort of Next Gen Hotspot Initiative, and that will allow the security, it will allow service discovery, and that's really going to help people offer sort of the seamless or transparent end user experience.
You talked about this information being contained in the SIM, which is traditionally controlled by the carriers. Are other companies in the ecosystem, such as Apple or Google, vying for control of the credentialing information?
Sure, so carriers are, you know, they like SIM-based authentication because they're trying to reclaim that user who at the moment is disappearing off to Wi-Fi. They want to reclaim the user identity and sort of bring them back into their orbit. And in general, most of the industry will go with that because it is good for the user, and that's really the aim. However, there are a number of sort of areas where you can see cause for some degree of tension between the handset OS guys and the carriers. So, you know, for example, deciding when and where a user should access Wi-Fi, does Apple, does Google really want to leave that decision down to operators, or do they want some say in it, defining the policy when a device connects to Wi-Fi or cellular? So I think broadly they're supportive, but I think there are areas of tension as well.
So you've talked about Wi-Fi offload. What about core network offload?
So core network offload is quite different to Wi-Fi or RAN offload in the sense that it's about the way the network architecture is going to evolve. It's about how the network, the system evolves, how you break out traffic from sort of the classic established architecture and take that off to internet. As such, it's quite a bit more evolved. It's something that over the long term is going to play out, but it's also something that a user doesn't particularly notice. That's more about the carrier's own infrastructure.
When you hear the phrase internet offload, it kind of sounds like carriers can't handle the volume of data they're receiving. Is that what's really happening here?
Internet offload, it kind of, sometimes it sounds like carriers can't handle the traffic, and that certainly is a little bit a part of the motivation as to why people are innovating in this area. But it's not really what's going on. Over the long term, you'll see that innovation in sort of the offload concept that happens adding the edge a little bit to the side will get absorbed into the mainstream as its value is proven and people see the utility in it. I kind of sometimes call it the Mick Jagger effect. You go from being sort of a rebel rocker in the 1970s to having dinner with the president in the 1990s, and it's something a little bit similar. It starts out on the edge, a bit maverick, but it comes into the mainstream as people see the utility and value of it.
Do femtocells play a role in any of this?
Yeah, femtocells have a role, it's part of RAN offload, potentially. Quite often you see femto and Wi-Fi going together. And also one of the things about femto is very often deployed as coverage extension rather than offload per se. It has an advantage over Wi-Fi in that it supports your carrier services, so your voice service is supported as well as your data. So there's some tension, but there's also some complementarity between them.
Thank you, Gabriel, for taking the time with us today.
Thanks, Todd.